I had
Yeah.
a whole timeline for my life. I thought I was going to get married at 25.
Yeah.
And then, be married for a couple years, maybe have my first kid at like 27, 28. I was fairly certain that that would be my portion, and it was
Yes.
not.
It's better with us two. We're better together.
Episode 11. It's here.
Oh my God.
What? That's a great intro.
Yep.
That's a great intro.
I just snorted, so it's even great.
Yeah, we don't start over on intros.
We don't.
No, we don't. So episode 11 is here, everybody. Bretter together. I'm Brydon Brett, your co-hostess with the mostest.
You're a hostess?
Your co-hostess. Oh, okay.
Hi, everybody. I'm ThomasBrett.
Wow.
This is Better Together.
It is.
And we are on episode 11.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
This is the podcast where we talk about faith and relationships and bridge building. It's about bridge building in every area of life. We're here not to make bridge building great again, but to make it great for the first time. We're here to make bridge building sexy,
Yes.
That's what we're here to do.
Yep.
You don't like that?
Well, yeah, I
thought we talked
wonder
about
if
that.
we're sexy or not.
Oh,
Don't you have to be sexy to make something sexy? Why are we having this conversation?
jump in the comments. Tell us, are we?
Oh, I don't want to know. Wow.
Hi, babe.
Hi.
She's my wife, in case
Hi.
you're just joining for the first time.
Yes.
If you haven't watched or listened to the previous 10 episodes, you need to do that. Binge those.
Binge them.
Binge them.
We've had a few of you guys binge them, and we're grateful that you have.
Yes.
Thank you so much for binging.
We truly are. So today, well, first of all, any life updates from you, babe?
Well, first, before we go any further, I just need to make sure everybody knows this man just had a birthday.
Did.
Woo, woo. 2020 year. He just turned 40.
Oh,
And
why you
we're
gotta tell
saying-
everybody that?
Because 40 is a milestone. There's people that did not make it to 40.
There are lots of
okay?
milestones.
It's a milestone. Okay.
Okay, all right.
You turned 40.
All
And
right.
I am so grateful that you were born.
Amen.
Y'all get in them comments and say happy birthday. Y'all get on that Venmo, BrydonThomasBrett.
Brydon/Brett.
It is. Oh, Brydon-Brett. Sorry.
Brett.
Brydon-Brett.
Okay.
That's his Venmo. I did this whole thing where I wanted to do 40 for 40. So I had at least 40 people send him $40
Whew.
on the different cash.
Yeah.
So what are they? Cash apps, cash money apps.
Money apps.
Anyway, on Venmo and Cash App, I had people send him
Yeah.
money for his 40th birthday, 40 for 40. And it was so cool to see how many people just automatically jumped in and were like, yeah, we absolutely want to, celebrate him. And so if you guys want to do that, his
Wow.
birthday is not here anymore, but he just turned 40. I think it's still within the, statute of limitations. Y'all want to hit that Cash App. We got the $. What is it? Is it Cash App is the $?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
is that Venmo?
We're doing this.
Cash App is $ BrydonThomasBrett.
Okay. Yeah.
Venmo
you know this.
is at Brydon-Brett. So if you want to send him $40, shout out to all of you who watch, who already have. Like my sister Jess, she already did it. But if there's anybody else who wants to participate and send this lovely man $40 for his 40th birthday or more, we're not picky, or less. If you want to send $5, we'll take it. But just bless them.
Oh
That's
my
a good
goodness.
way for you to bless them.
Wow,
And
it's
if
so
you can't do
uncomfortable
that,
right now.
because it's hard to ask people for money, but I'm not asking
Right.
for myself. I'm asking for you. I don't know. Some people like to do that.
Yeah.
We've had people ask, like, how can we support you? What can we do?
Yeah.
Hit his little cash app's little Venmo one time. Anyway, he's
You're
supposed
so
to be
cute. You're cute.
Thank you. You're sweet.
Yeah. I
Um,
like you.
I like you too.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's a great person, and I'm really grateful that he was born. Maybe we need to like tell the story that we know about how both of us were born, like how we came into the
Oh
world, because we
yeah,
both have some pretty interesting stories to tell
that's true.
about like
Yeah.
how we were born and
Yeah.
the circumstances surrounding our births. We should probably do that. Maybe people are interested in that. If you guys are interested, let us know.
That's a great idea.
But your story is great, and you are such a phenomenal person. Like, you guys hear him talk and you see all the things that he's able to just pull out of his brain, all of the wonderful quotes. And I mean, he's like a machine. He has all these scriptures and quotes and all these statistics to just kind of live in his brain. And I think he's got like a file system that he can just go and find the things that he needs to say in the right moment. And it's just one of the amazing things about him. And if you can see how amazing he is at that, that's how he is at everything. And so it's just really, really great to walk through life with him and be his wife and be his partner and be his best friend. And he's my coach, and he's just like literally the best human I've ever met. So I enjoy talking about him and celebrating him for his birthday. I haven't even done a birthday post yet, but I probably will. I will, because I can't resist. And if you guys haven't noticed, I'm kind of obsessed with him. So anyway, happy birthday, babe. I love
Thanks,
you.
babe. There's a life update.
I don't know about life update.
That's
I
good.
don't have anything to update.
Yeah,
I'll be
yeah.
releasing some music soon.
Oh yeah. She's got a song that she wrote. It's really good. Really, really good.
Yeah, it's called Bad Woman.
Bad Woman.
It's kind of bluesy.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'll be releasing that in the next
Yeah.
month or so. Probably I want to do it in the next couple weeks. So we'll see what happens. I will keep you guys updated.
Amazing. Okay. All right. Well, thanks, babe, for all the love on the birthday. It was great, and I was super grateful for all the generosity and contributions everybody made. It was such a blessing.
Good. It was good to see
'Cause
how
of-
much
yeah.
support you have in the world, like how many people love you and how many people care about you and still think about you even though you don't see them all the time and that kind of thing. It's just really cool to see the response.
Yeah. It's humbling.
Yeah. I made him a chocolate mousse cake for
Oh
his
my
birthday.
goodness.
I don't know, that cake must have had crack in it because the kids,
Yeah.
my son and my niece, listen, David and Zoe were they wanted that cake more than you did.
Yeah.
They were all about that cake. From the minute I started making it, they were checking on it. Is it done yet?
It was so good.
It was really good though.
It was really good. You treated me so well, babe. I'm blessed, and I was super grateful for the contributions because the Lord had told me to finish out the Unfinished Basement studio, and so that's allowing that to happen, and that's a beautiful thing. And also just want to shout out and just say thank you to everybody who has supported us on our website,
Yes.
BrydonThomasBrett.com. We have a donation portal there, and we appreciate you all. Like just supporting our bridge building ministry. This is different. This is something that not a lot of people are doing, and we feel called to it, and so we just appreciate y'all's support. So, but yeah, so today, we love the relationship bucket. We love talking relationships.
Yeah.
And because
it seems like y'all like it a lot too.
Yeah, for sure. And so our relationship has been, we just learned so much, and it's so unique, and the premise of the relationship, and everything. So I think we just perhaps have some unique things to offer. One of the things we don't talk about very often about our story, for real, like highlighting, because there's so many other things that are different about it with the inter-ethnic thing and the interdenominational, interfaith thing, whatever you want to call that. Those differences in backgrounds. That's what we highlight most of the time. But another part of our story is the fact that we both got married later than typical, right? Than
typical for Christians. I was just watching this podcast clip recently, and the girl was talking about how millennial women were really just set up for the okie doke. Like, she's like, that's literally what she said. She said, millennial women were set up for the okie doke. We were kind of given that line of like, you don't need a man. You need to make sure that you can take care of yourself. You got to go to college to get an education. You got to do this, that, and the third. And then you look up and you're a certain age and you don't have a husband or children or any of those things because you've been pursuing a career. And that was what we were told was like, the thing that we should be chasing instead of really going after what God has for our lives, regardless of what societal norms are. That's kind of, the line that we've been sold. And so a lot of women in our age bracket are what you would say like call later marriages or older when they get married. Typical to the wow, what word did I just the Tristan. Typical to the Christian tradition. A lot of people get married pretty young, So by the time we got married, a lot of people that, we knew were on their second and third and fourth child. And you know what I mean? Like friends our age, we have a 3-year-old. We have friends our age who have kids who are like 10 and 12 and 17 and
17, like graduating high school.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess it depends on how you categorize later.
Well,
because
yeah.
Even when I Googled it, like the idea of getting married late, everybody was talking about like, oh, getting married in your 50s and 60s. And I was like, oh, so maybe my concept of late is subjective. I don't know.
Well, yeah, for sure. It's a little subjective.
It seems like it is based on what I found when I just did like a quick Google search. It was just like most of the quotes and things were about like, if you said getting married later, it was like, 60s, 50s, 60s.
Interesting.
Like,
I wouldn't have thought of that.
I wouldn't have either. I was not prepared for those results.
Interesting, like societal shifts, but like the average age of a person in America, the first time they get married, 28-ish for women, 30 for men. Okay. For Christians, it does tend to be a little younger. This is just like a cursory Google search, but around 24.
Okay.
So
that sounds about right. That was when I thought I would get married. I had a whole timeline for my life. I thought I was going to get married at 25.
Yeah.
And then, be married for a couple years, maybe have my first kid at like 27, 28,
Mm-hmm.
I was fairly certain that would be my portion, and it was not. You know what I mean? Like, I don't even know if I don't think I was in a serious relationship when I was 25.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even thinking about getting married when I was 25. And so it's just like I was in college. I was still in college. I was like, it's like, I'm not getting married yet, you know? So it's just interesting to see like what I thought when I was younger would be what I'd end up doing, and then what I actually ended up doing.
Yeah.
Very different.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was going to get married at 27 because at 16 years old, I activated my 11-year plan. So people would talk about marriage and dating, this, that. And I said, no, that's not my 11-year plan. And my 11-year plan was based on Michael Jordan's timeline for getting married. He got married when he was 27 to Juanita. And I said, that's going to be when I get married, 27. I was into basketball, like for real. Yeah. And so, but I didn't get married till well after that. You didn't get married till well after you thought you were going to get married. So I think it's safe to say, at least within like traditional society, like at least American society, we got married later than typical, and certainly later than our expectations.
Oh yeah.
So I think that what we're talking about today would apply to anybody who is in the boat of feeling like, hey, I'm waiting on this. This is something I want, but it's not happening. And what do I do? You know what I'm saying? Like, I think that's who we're talking to today, because certainly that was us. I think we both did want it, although there was that ebbed and flowed a little bit, like you said. But yeah, so I think that's interesting. So the first nugget, like this just came out right away, is frustrations only come because of unmet expectations. I'll say that again. Frustrations only come because of unmet expectations. So if you expect to get married at 22 and it doesn't happen, right now you're going to be discontent. And discontentment is like the chief stealer of happiness. It really is.
The chief thief.
The chief thief. In a great book called Happiness by Randy Alcorn, he highlighted the study that was done on the happiness level of different countries. And Denmark was number one.
Yes, I remember this.
Denmark was number one because they had lower expectations.
Yikes.
America was like down in the, I can't remember, 30s or 40s. And you know, and that's tough, like, because we have the American dream, so expectations are so high.
Yep.
And if you're looking side to side and comparing yourself to other people, and oh, they're getting married faster than me, or they're getting that job, or they're graduating college, or you know, whatever, you compare your life to other people, you're just setting yourself up for a lot of discontentment and a lot of unhappiness. So yeah, so I think that's a big one. You know, like just initially the expectation.
Yeah.
If you're expecting, you know, to get married and you're not, then you need to adapt. You need to adjust. You need to pivot, whatever the word is, recalibrate.
Yeah.
Recalibrate and don't live in that past. You know what I'm saying? I think I lived in the past a little bit. And there's a big difference between divine discontent and your own discontent, worldly discontent.
Ooh.
Big difference. Divine discontent is that just enough of that tinge to keep you moving forward towards something beautiful, towards something great.
Yeah.
But when you're just discontent in general, then you're living in the past. Divine discontent moves you forward. Your own discontent keeps you in the past. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So
I agree. There's this quote from Anne Lamott, and it says, "Expectations are resentments under construction."
whoa.
Expectations are resentments under construction.
Whew. I'm thinking about that.
Right? It really does make you think. Because it literally is just like, if you have an expectation for something to happen, that's like laying the groundwork or the foundation for you to build on top of, to build your disappointments on top of later,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So you have this expectation and it's unmet.
Yeah.
And that's your foundation. And the disappointment from that unmet expectation becomes the framework for you to then add, you know, the siding and, you know,
Sure,
the
sure,
drywall
sure.
and, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
you build this edifice of discontent around your unmet expectation.
Wow.
And it can be, I mean, people set up shop in these unmet expectations and these disappointments. They live in them. I mean, we can allow ourselves to really just like build our lives around unmet expectations, around disappointment. And then when the thing that we so earnestly wanted, or the thing that we cared so much about, when it does show up, when it does manifest, we can't recognize it because the windows of the edifice of disappointment that we're living in are frosted over with our disappointment.
Dang.
Maybe there aren't even any windows in these edifices that we build.
Right,
You know what I mean?
right,
Like
right.
we inhabit these disappointments, and it cripples us, and it stunts our growth.
Yeah.
You know, because
Come on.
we think that something should have happened a certain way by a certain time. And one thing that I know specifically about God is that he is about process.
We love that.
You know, and we hate process. You know, everybody really, somebody got in our comments and they were not correct about some assumption that they made about something that I said.
Yeah.
But they weren't wrong about how Christians tend to treat God. And that is like he is a genie in a bottle where we can just rub the lamp and make our 3 wishes. And he has to abide by the things that we want him to do. You know? And I think that is one of the ways that we tend to approach prayer and even fasting, is like we're trying to manipulate heaven into giving us what we want, rather than trying to align our desires with the Lord and his desires so that the kingdom of heaven is built.
Yeah.
The Lord doesn't put people together to make them happy. I don't think he does. I think happiness is a natural byproduct of being in his will.
Yeah.
Because the best place to be is in his will, right? Like if he tells you to do something and you do it, you feel a certain amount of satisfaction from being obedient, you know? And when your obedience starts to bear fruit, then you really are like, oh, okay. And that encourages more obedience. And then you begin to realize that as a being that is designed by this great and wonderful creator, if you follow what the manufacturer's manual tells you to do, if you follow what his voice tells you to do, that's going to be the optimal conditions for your existence, right? And so it's like, yeah, let's do what you said, because I remember how it feels to be obedient, and I remember, I remember the outcome. I remember that I just feel much more content, and I feel much more settled and much more myself when I do what the Lord tells me to do.
Okay.
Like that's what I mean. I don't think that the Lord, maybe I should say, I don't think the Lord puts us together just to be happy.
Right.
Like
right.
happiness is just, and he doesn't have to worry about our happiness, because that's just built in to how he does things. And we are just so preoccupied with being happy that we miss everything else. The Lord puts people together for kingdom purposes, to build the kingdom. That's why he puts people together. That's why when you see two people who are really living their kingdom purposes, like why they're on the planet, you'll see that their purposes align.
Yeah.
That they kind of go together, It's like they're not off doing two completely separate things. They complement each other, because that's how it works when the Lord puts people together.
Yeah.
And I think I said all of that to say that one of the reasons why we get so caught up with our unmet expectations and we worship our disappointment is because we really don't think that God cares about our happiness. We don't think that, I don't think we really believe that he knows what we want, what we like, or that he cares about those things.
Okay.
I mean, I was talking to my sister about the reasons why women settle.
Yeah.
Or why people settle in general. And one of the things that she was saying is like, I think she said for herself, like she just didn't believe that God could do what she wanted. She didn't think that he cared enough about what she wanted to do things that would make her happy. She was trusting him to disappoint her. That's what she was doing.
Wow.
And that's, I think, what we do with the Lord when it comes to unmet expectations. Because a lot of times it's not even really him that's not meeting our expectations. I think the way we're programmed early on in life concerning our parents and our fathers and our first interactions with adults or humans with authority or people with authority over us, like our first interactions inform a lot of times the way that we see God. And so we struggle with unmet expectations and disappointment and resentment with people in authority around us. We kind of ascribe that to the Lord. So then it's like, well, I've been disappointed so much in my life already. I just expect the Lord to disappoint me like everyone else has. I don't know. Wow. I know that that's not the truth for everyone, but I really think that it's gotta be the truth for a lot of people.
Yeah. Okay.
So what are you thinking over there?
I
know I triggered probably like 15 different things in your brain.
Well, I want to keep it, make sure that people are, feeling talked to on this subject because, hopefully, this, catches people in the search or whatever, like this is a big deal. Like, it's a big topic. Like if you're going through this right now, it's like top of mind.
That's true.
It's your world. Like, we take it for granted, right? But I was just talking to like my friend the other day, and talking about being married and the difference between that and being single. And it took me a minute after we got married still to not go to Walmart or to a social gathering or to church even and see a woman and not automatically analyze as to how she could be a marriage candidate. Does that make sense?
It does make sense.
Okay, wait a minute. Oh, hear me out.
Okay,
All right, because you like in like Latter-day Saint culture, but I know Christian culture, but like in general, like just being single, like sometimes it feels like it's a market, like a meat market,
Yeah.
And so you're just constantly sizing everybody up. You're analyzing them based on if they're a marriage partner, if they have marriage potential or not, and so it took my brain a while to make this, just to get out of the habit of doing that. That's all I'm saying. I wasn't like looking for other women.
You said now, even now.
I did not say even now.
You did.
No. Roll back the tape. I didn't say even.
I thought maybe
I said,
I mixed up. We'll see.
After we got
watch
married,
the playback.
it took a while. Yeah, it took a minute. After we got married, not now, no. So I apologize if I said that. Which I know I didn't.
I think you said like even now or even today or something like that, like
Okay.
something that kind of alluded to the fact
right.
that it still happens.
She's keeping score. This is crazy.
No, I'm not.
I know, just kidding. No, but I just think like if that's like where you're at, like that's like it really is a dominant thing in your mind for a lot of people. So I just want to, so that the expectations thing, I think that's like a big deal.
Yeah. Unmet expectations can really, really mess you up, especially in this topic of conversation. It's rough.
Yeah, for sure. But no, you did say a lot of things that triggered things. I just want to, keep it, on topic for everybody, who's listening. But yeah, like, yeah, the marriage, like, and the happiness thing, like, I think that's worth talking about for a second, because I do think happiness is like, that's actually what we're wired for. Mm-hmm. And there are a lot of systems out there, a lot of belief systems, a lot of options that guarantee you happiness. But I think I actually did this exercise about the kingdom of God and the gospel of Jesus Christ. What is, and I kind of like ran a business plan on it. And so what is the unique selling point of the kingdom of God? What's the unique selling point of the gospel of Jesus Christ, of all, comparing it to every other system on the market? Mm-hmm. And truly what it offers, everything else, you can put everything else in the pot. What it ultimately boils down to is maximal happiness. Mm-hmm. It is the system that guarantees the full realization of one's potential, satisfaction, fulfillment in creation, and ultimately maximal happiness. So every other system can provide happiness to a degree, but it might never get past 50 or 60 or 70%. But here's the kingdom of God and the gospel of Jesus Christ saying, here, if you do it Jesus' way, you can have 100%, and it's actually exponential, right? You can actually start to access my joy. You access my love, my power, which you can't even comprehend right now. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So when you think about marriage, like being for kingdom purposes ultimately and happiness are intertwined. So, yes. But I know what you're saying. Like James Faust said, the Lord cares more about you than about your happiness, AKA your development. He cares more about your development, and he will develop you for your flourishing, because he knows that that's going to ultimately lead to more of that maximal happiness, right? So I think that's important. So marriage, it's an interesting topic. I'm trying to think of where to even go. The Unmet Expectations thing was really good. But I just got like random bullet points, because all we do is like just write down notes. But I was going back through my experience being single and all the challenges of that, and the advice and all these things that people give you, Mm-hmm. And so maybe we just kind of go rapid fire, just down different talking points.
Okay.
related to it.
I'm game.
Maybe just kind of go ping pong back and forth. Do you mind if I start with one?
No.
Okay. You don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
So
Sorry.
the first, if we're just like giving advice, and then we just ping pong off of this, I think one thing that I will say to anybody, this is just life advice, is enjoy the season you're in.
Oh, so good.
Enjoy the season that you're in, because let's be honest, being single is not all bad, right?
Child.
And we're married and we love each other, but there are times, right, where you have to say, that was nice to be able to have that freedom to do this, that, or the other.
I was literally just thinking about that today. Like, once I realized that trusting God was my best option for my future, I really leaned into the season I was in. I really leaned into being single. I really leaned into, trying to understand myself and what I liked and what I didn't like. And even just like,
yes,
just the, I don't even know what the word is, but just living by myself, just having my own apartment and having my own things and having just doing that was so helpful for me and so revelatory when it came to understanding my own identity and my own thought processes and how I liked to do things. I had grown up, and as the oldest of 6 kids, I was mini mom. And so I was always the one that if my mom wasn't doing whatever needed to be done, I was doing it. And there's a certain amount of responsibility that comes with being the eldest child in your household. And so when you're not in your household anymore, it's like, well, what do you do if you're not taking care of people? And I was like, well, I need to take care of myself. And do I like the way my mother taught me to do this thing?
right.
Or do I want to have my own way of doing it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Do I just randomly clean, or do I have a schedule? Do I, like to do my laundry bi-weekly or weekly? Like, these things were things that I didn't even think I cared about until I lived on my own. And then I was like, oh, I have preferences. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I think leaning into the singleness and understanding yourself at a very deep level will also help you when it comes time to identify the person you are supposed to be with. It will give you the eyes to see, the ears to hear, and the hearts to understand what it is that the Lord is trying to reveal to you when he does bring your spouse or the person that you're supposed to be with, if that is your desire. Some people don't even want to be married. Like, we don't talk about that. You know what I mean? Like, some people don't care about that. Yep. Some people like being single.
Mm-hmm.
And for the time that I was single, once I realized that the Lord had so much for me to understand and dive into and discover about myself, I just leaned into that. And it was such a rich time of being able to just fast and pray and lay on my face for hours and talk to the Lord and have these revelatory dreams and visions and all of these things that were open to me because I was leaning into being able to spend all my time talking to the Lord and studying scripture and all these different things. Like, leaning into singleness is so rich. It's so full of treasures, specifically when it comes to relationship with the Lord.
With the Lord, yes.
A lot of times we just seek the Lord because we want what we want him to give us, and we want him to think that we're worthy of whatever it is we want.
Right.
But just seeking the Lord because you want to have a relationship with him and just leaning into that, beautiful. I loved my time in Lancaster. Like, those 2 years were absolutely pivotal for me. Living in my own apartment. Walking everywhere I went. Discovering all these cool restaurants. Really just flushing out my love for vintage. All these different things. Fleshing out my love for vintage.
Yeah, you didn't flush it.
I didn't flush it.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. There was a vintage shop around the corner from my house, and I was there once a week at least, And yeah, I discovered so much more of myself when it was like, when I was able to, when I had the time to,
Yeah.
and just leaning into it. It was
Yeah.
great. And so I think that is definitely a plus. Now, some people will be like, well, I've been leaning into it for a long time. But
Yeah,
I don't
right.
know.
No, and yeah, that's real for sure. But I think still the principle holds. Enjoy the season you're in. Enjoy the season you're in. I'm gonna say that one more time. Just enjoy
Just one more time.
Enjoy the season you're in, because you're going to want certain things from past seasons in the current season you're in.
Ugh.
Like being single, you want to get married, but then when you're married, you're like, oh man, there's some things about being single that were awesome. And then when you get married, enjoy that when it's just you two before you have the kids. Because there are times now we have a kid, and we that first year of marriage was like heaven, right? And what we wouldn't give just to like cuddle together, and we love our son, right?
Yeah, he's
right.
The best kid. Yeah.
And then, but now we got to enjoy the season we're in with him, because that's not going to be here forever. He's
getting so big so quick.
So I just think that's important. And then an adjacent principle is don't wait for your physical circumstance to change your heart or your inward self. You are the common denominator.
Yeah.
So you might live your whole life, and I learned this at some point. It's like, okay, and we just wait for the next milestone, and we say, okay, when I graduate high school, then I'm going to start living. When I graduate college, then I'm going to be happy. When I get married, then I'm going to be. When I get this job, when I move here. Well, guess what? If you move from here to here, you're still there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. You're the common denominator.
You are the common denominator. And so work on your inside, work on the inside, and don't wait for some kind of external circumstance or milestone or event to change you. That's not how it works. You follow you throughout your entire life and later. So it's like an eternal thing. So enjoy the season you're in, and don't bemoan like where you're at, and just be looking forward constantly to the next thing. That also creates discontent. Happiness really is in the present. It really is. You can borrow from the future and bring that into today and start living today as if it's in the future. But if you're constantly waiting for something that's in the future to allow you to be happy now, then that's not going to work. And if you think your past dictates your present, and if your past is the greatest indicator of your future, then you're also going to be discontent. You need to live in the present, borrow from the future, learn from the past.
Ooh, I love that, baby.
So,
I like that. That's real good.
Yeah. All right. So those are my little things on. I got more. I got so much more. What's your next piece of advice?
A question.
Okay.
Honestly, for you.
Okay.
And then I'll give a little advice, I guess. But I have a question. What do you wish that you knew when you were younger about relationships?
About relationships?
Yeah. Because, like you said, we often are always like looking forward for the next milestone. Like, that's when I'm going to be, complete. That's when I'm going to be fulfilled. That's when I'm going to be happy. It's this like amorphous, like, thing in the future that's not really something that I can see or touch right now, but that's what I'm reaching for, instead of loving who you are and where you are and what you are in the present, and then striving to be the best version of yourself. Like, what do you wish you knew? Like, if you could tell yourself when you were coming up on the end of your 11-year plan and you weren't where you thought you would be, what would you say to that guy?
I think I'd have him go listen to episode 11 of Better Together, because I think everything we're saying is going to get that, honestly. But something that does come to mind is this, something I did learn later that I wish I would have known sooner, is that, and this applies to us right now, because we're giving principles and advice, and some of it's specific to our relationship.
Right.
And there's a difference between your story and somebody else's story.
Sure.
And so I think that's one of the things I wish I would have known more thoroughly, was that my story is my story. My piece is my piece. And I don't need to be comparing myself to others. That creates all kinds of discontent. When I'm trying to be someone else's puzzle piece or someone else's picture, that's not how God created it. And he's got this beautiful mosaic. And if I just run my blueprint and trust him, then it's going to work out. And yes, some people get married at 17 or 18 or 19 or 20, you know, and they get the traditional, you know, Latter-day Saint or Christian life started really early, and they have a lot of kids, you know, or whatever. But my story is my story. And I can learn from other people's stories, but don't try to run their race. You know what I mean? And don't listen to everything that everybody tells you about relationships either. Because you'll have a lot of people come and tell you, well, this is how I knew she was the one. This is how I came to the conclusion that I was supposed to get married, and this, that, and the other. And when you're listening to people, you should be trying to extract the principles from what they're saying,
Right, not the specifics.
but not the specifics. Get the general, but not the specific, because I got caught in that sometimes, where I made decisions in my current relationships based on somebody else's relationship from 30 years ago.
Oof.
You know, right? And then when I look at the variables, they had so many different variables than I had, and so I just needed to extract the principles. So I think that's one thing I would say. So don't compare, don't try to run someone else's race, and don't take everybody's word as gospel. Try to pull the nuggets out, and then keep moving.
I love it.
Yeah.
There's this quote from Selma Hayek, and I feel like I resonate with it so strongly, because she said, I wish I knew when I was younger that I was going to fall crazy in love with the perfect man. I would have saved myself a lot of personal drama.
Whoa.
And that's what I wish I knew when I was younger. I wish I knew with certainty that I was going to meet the man with God's heart for me. I wish I knew that the person I prayed for was being built by my prayers. I wish I knew that the Lord actually was hearing me, and that what I had asked for was not astronomical, that what I wanted and that the desires of my heart were aligned with his and were not impossible, that what I wanted already existed.
Wow.
And that I needed to be patient and obedient, and that our paths would intersect in his timing. I would have saved myself a lot of personal drama if I had known that.
Yeah.
If I had been certain of that.
That's good.
And I think it's possible to be certain of that ahead of time.
Yeah.
I just didn't know it. I would have reassured myself, because no one ever reassured me of those things. No one ever said to me, if the Lord has led you and told you, because I had already been given some, like I had prophetic word given to me multiple times about how my husband was out there and that the Lord was going to give me my husband. But no one said that I had to be a participant in receiving the promise.
Oh, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that until several years later. And I think if someone would have told me, the Lord has promises for you, but he always requires participation in order for you to receive the promise, I think I would have participated earlier.
Well, so that raises the question, do you think we got married when we were supposed to? Or could it have happened sooner?
That, I always think about that. I always wonder, but I don't know, because I think if I hadn't gone through what I went through with my ex before I met you, I don't think that I would have recognized you.
Right.
I wasn't broken enough. I needed to be broken. like the lyrics from the Rest in Me song from The King Will Come. I need you to be broken to be open. I wouldn't have been open to you. I wouldn't have entertained you. I would have just been like, oh, he's just a nice guy. He's just sweet. And you might not have even considered me if you hadn't gone through the things that you went through prior to meeting me. I think the breaking was necessary in order for me to see you and in order for you to see me. Like, there were things that were necessary, things that had to happen with our worldviews and our paradigms and our perceptions before we actually met each other. You are everything I prayed for, but the packaging I never expected because I didn't specify the packaging.
Yeah.
And now that I think about it, that had to have been divine, because if I asked for one thing and the Lord delivered something else, then I probably would have questioned the delivery. But I didn't, because I never asked for packaging. The only thing I asked was that you be tall enough that I could wear heels with you still being taller than me.
Right. Yeah.
And that was really all on the packaging side. That was all I asked for.
Yeah.
And the Lord was very specific with what he delivered. Everything that I asked for was spiritual or temperamental or intelligence, those kinds of things. I didn't really ask for cosmetic things. I just figured that the Lord would know what I liked because he knows me. It never really even occurred to me to ask for looks or what you might look like or what I wanted you to look like.
Interesting.
I just figured you'd be something I like because the Lord knows me.
Well, yeah, I mean.
But I wish that somebody would have said to me, like, you need to participate to receive the promise.
Yeah.
I wish somebody would have been like, you play a part in this. It's not just like you twiddling your thumbs and waiting for the Lord to deliver whatever it is he said he was going to do.
Right.
Like, I never really grasped, not never, but I grasped that concept a lot later.
Yeah.
Than maybe I should have. And maybe that could have sped events along, But
it could have,
I don't think
then you might have been at the point of being ready, and I might not have been. Like, there's like, you can go into the metaverse, like go to all kinds of parallel, alternate realities and how this could have happened, but it happened the way it happened. It could, the timeline have been advanced, maybe, but that would have taken participation on both our parts. And so it's just miraculous that the Lord brought us together, because you're absolutely right. And that's, I think, maybe leads to another piece of advice. And like, maybe, I'm not even saying it, I don't want to say advice. I just want to say, like, this lessons and encouragement that we've learned. Because if you just leave this with just one piece of something that encourages you, I think we've been successful today. But I would say that you can learn from every relationship.
Oh, yeah.
Every relationship, if you don't view it as a loss, when it ends, if you can view it as gain, it can be gain to you, because you can turn every loss into a lesson, and you can learn more about yourself, more about what you prefer, more about what you're really looking for from every relationship. So I look back at every relationship that I had, and it really was setting me up to be able to recognize and see you, and finally get into a place in my heart where I was willing to commit and willing to go through the wrestle. So yeah, every relationship that I had was like, there's a piece in that one that I really liked. There are these things I didn't like, and this I learned about myself, and so I was able to kind of construct that into the ideal, what I was ultimately looking for. And so then I began asking for that, and then you showed up in slightly different packaging, but pretty close.
Pretty close to what you wanted.
To what I was after. But it took a lot of self-discovery, and so I just don't think any effort's wasted when it comes to relationships and dating. If you view it with that mentality of there's gain in every experience in life, and so I can learn something from this relationship. And I might have been on the dating app, and we went out and to dinner and I spent $50 that I wish I wouldn't have spent because it seemed like a waste of time. Well, there's still something to have learned from that. At least you learned.
When were you on a dating app?
Oh, I'm just saying like in general, like hypothetical.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying like
Wait
for
a
somebody
minute, I
who
missed
might
that.
be doing that, right? And so, maybe you're out $50, but hopefully there's, at least one off the list.
Right. At the very least, you figure out some things you don't like.
You're narrowing down.
Yeah.
You're narrowing down the scope, and you've talked about this, but the more specific you can get, the better. So I think that's really good. All right, cool. My turn, or you did a question. Did you do?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you want to do?
You can do more.
I think I might have more than you.
You do.
Yeah. Okay.
You always prepare for these things more than.
Let's
I
go
do.
3-1 then. No. Okay. No. But I think this is good. Yeah. Actually. Yeah, I feel like this is a good time to say this. Okay. This could be like ending type of vibes, but I just really have this on my heart that I want to say to anybody who isn't married but wants to be, that you're not unworthy. You're not broken. You're not like in disrepair. Like you're not damaged. You know what I mean? Like you are worthy of love, and it doesn't have to be earned, especially from God. Especially from God. Yeah. Erwin McManus says we don't work for acceptance. We work from acceptance. We don't work for worthiness. We work from worthiness because of what Jesus did. And I just want to speak that to anybody who is feeling damaged or broken or unworthy of horizontal, like love in a relationship or even with God, that you are worthy and you're not broken. And your circumstance of being single is not a punishment. It's not.
And if you are broken, that's not a bad thing.
No.
The Lord loves broken things and says that he's near to those who are of a broken heart. So if you are broken and you feel broken, that's okay. Because that usually means that he's closer than he might be otherwise.
Yeah. No, I think all of that could be reworded because some people out there are saying, well, no, you are broken. You are unworthy.
Right.
You are damaged. And there's only one who isn't. And it's his righteousness that you put on yourself. Right. It's his worthiness you put on yourself. It's his wholeness that you put on yourself. So that's absolutely true. I think what I'm really trying to say is if your circumstance, your singleness, that feeling of brokenness is leading you into a pattern of shame and guilt and condemnation, then that's not where you want to be. And that's where the devil would like you to be, but that's not where the Lord wants you to be. And he wants you to know that you are loved and you're worthy of love. And even if you don't have the perfect relationship or perfect marriage, you are still absolutely loved by him. And your worthiness in his eyes is not contingent upon your marital status.
Amen to that. Because, man, this is something that I hear from a lot of my single friends, specifically the women, that like they just feel like they're not seen as people of value if they're not married, you know, that there's something like deeply wrong with you if you're single. Yeah. And that is the vibe that you sometimes get from church, you know.
You feel like a second-class citizen.
Yeah. When you're not married, and that there's so much emphasis, especially in your church, there's so much emphasis put on the family. Yeah. And families are forever and this and that, and like it can grate on a person who, if you're not married by a certain age, is considered a menace to society. Like
I often felt inferior, and I had to really, and I'm a confident person, so I could imagine how other single people were feeling. And it's not intentional most of the time, but people aren't giving off that vibe. It's just the culture. Mm-hmm. And you go into a situation, you see this family sitting next to each other, and you go there to sit alone again.
Mm. And then they have the singles church that everybody who's single goes to, and then everybody's just kind of like miserable hanging out together. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes, but no,
not
right.
always.
No.
I think, but I think that there is like this undergirding, like this thing that's like an undercurrent that's just kind of underneath everything
Mhm.
that I think is just kind of in everyone's minds. It's like in their own belief systems. It just kind of gets perpetuated by being around more single people who believe the same thing as you. And then it's just like, well, there's nothing of value that I can add. There's nothing, you know what I mean? And that's bull. Like, there's so many things that you can be doing specifically to build the kingdom that are harder to do once you're married. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so it's just like,
Paul talked about that.
I was going to bring it up, but yeah, it's really hard for me to have these conversations with some of my single sisters, because it's just like, I totally know how you feel because we got married, quote unquote, later, right? Because we got married later, we both experienced the depth and the breadth of what it feels like to be single and to feel like there's like somehow an inferiority that's associated with it. When you know, get to your 30s and you're not married, you know, if you're in your 30s and you're single, if you're in your early 40s and you're single and you're feeling like, well, this might mean that I'm never going to get married.
Yeah.
And you want to get married, like he's been saying, just lean into your singleness. Like, try to enjoy it, cuz when the Lord does provide for you, you're going to be like, that was a really good time. I should have done more.
Yeah.
You know, I have a sister friend who will solo travel in a minute. Like, she does not play. And I love that. She lets people know where she is. She's accountable. She, you know, makes sure that people can keep tabs on her so that, you know, nothing crazy happens. But she will get up and go. She is living her life, taking jobs, doing relocations every couple of years, just, you know, living in different parts of the country, exploring different parts of the world. She is leaning into it. And yes, she wants to be married, and yes, she wants to be in a partnership with somebody who can push her toward her greatest self, as far as like, you know, the way being married sharpens you, you know. But she is all about becoming the best version of herself and doing everything that she can do in the season she's in.
Yeah.
And I love that. She's like a billboard for what it is like to be like righteously single and just doing everything that she is created to do.
Yeah.
You know, I love watching her because she's such an inspiration. I wish I would have had her when I was single.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't know her when I was single, but I feel like she would have encouraged me a lot.
Yeah.
In that season.
Yeah. Something you said about being like 40 and single, or 50 plus and 60, you know what I'm saying?
It's interesting how later in life gets categorized.
That's what I want to like highlight. Like, ageism is one of the isms that we overlook.
Yeah. Amen.
We glamorize youth so much in this society. And when people start getting older, at the time when they should be contributing the most to society with their wisdom and experience, our society starts to put them out to pasture. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And
I hate that.
I just feel like I just want to normalize that it's okay. Like, it's okay if you're older and not married, right? But there is a reality. You do have to realize you are living in a society where youth is glamorized. So that is a reality that you're dealing with. It's like any other ism. These are realities. It doesn't make it right.
Amen.
It does not make it right. And that's why, like, ageism is a thing where you get categorized, you get stereotyped, you get ostracized, marginalized because of your age. And that is a reality, a construct socially that we are actually dealing with. And and so I think you need to recognize it, but then turn it on its head. I love seeing so many cool people, like on Instagram or whatever, or TikTok, who are trying new things later on in life. Like that's a 60-year-old producer. She's dope. Like this black lady, like, and she says she just released her first fully produced, mixed and mastered like trap hip hop beat. It's like such a dope idea, right?
Yeah.
Like it's so cool. And I just think that's so important, you know. And maybe I'm thinking that more because now I'm 40, you know, right? And
You're
I think
starting
you have
to
to,
enter that, that age group where people start counting you out.
yeah.
When really a lot of people didn't even figure themselves out until they were in their 40s. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
like so many different entrepreneurs and
Oh,
business
yeah.
moguls who were like, yeah, I didn't even know who I was until I was 40,
Yeah.
that didn't do anything that people would consider significant in business or in life or in, in their relationships until 40 hit, because there's just something that happens. There's a switch. Like every new decade you hit, there's like another switch that gets flipped. And for me, like when I entered my 30s, I was just like, there was just a certain switch where I was like, certain things I didn't care about no more. Especially when it happened. And I feel like the older people get, if you doing it right, the older you get, the less you care about what people think.
Yeah.
The less you care about, whatever preconceived societal notions are floating around. Like you just about living your life. And you can see it in older people with their mouth. Lord have mercy. They just say whatever comes to their mind. And they don't care. Like they really do not care.
Yeah.
They will say whatever the heck they want.
Some of them should care a little more.
Some should care. Some of y'all should care. I'm just saying, have a little bit more cool, run it past the front office a couple times, get your filter cleaned, something. But like, I have family members, like I have an aunt, and when she got to a certain age, she's always been just like, kind of rambunctious. But when she got to a certain age, she will say whatever the heck she wants to your face. She don't care. And it's just like, you could have kept that to yourself sometimes. But sometimes it's like, I can understand why she's just like, who gonna check me?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And that's what I love about, the older generation and getting, to those older decades, getting to the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. It's just like, there's just a certain, like, a bravado that comes with it. If you doing it right, it's like, who gonna check me?
Yeah.
I have lived enough life. I have gained enough wisdom. I have seen, I have been, I have done. And I'm just going to do whatever is pressing on my heart to do.
Yeah.
I'm not letting anything stop me anymore.
Right. But it's that kind of person, like, because you can give in to it.
Yeah.
Right. And a body motion stays in motion. If you go out of motion, then you start to like the attrition is real. Right.
Yeah.
And that's for anybody. Right. So, but staying engaged and not checking out because you are older. I don't know. This was that's a side note in a way, but I feel like maybe someone's listening to that who's in that boat. It's like, no, bro. Like there's a recent study that said the age group where the most people are starting businesses is 55 plus.
I love that.
Starting businesses.
So
y'all
hear that? Starting businesses. 55 plus. I feel like that's for, like people like my daddy and my mommy. You know what I mean? Like they are just so full of amazing ideas and gifts. My father is chock full of gifts. He could run 15, 20 businesses with the ideas that come out of this man's mind. And I just think that the ageism that we encounter is really just so crippling sometimes, because you think, oh, well, I'm retired now, I'm not supposed to do nothing, I'm supposed to just waste away until no, retire from one career and go do something else. I love that. Starting a business at 55, come on.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's super real, man. So I think that's it. Hopefully that's encouraging somebody out there. You know what I mean? Like that's important. So yeah. All right, so one question to seed something for you, because I think it's an important part of the conversation. And there's so much, like I have so many good things that could be shared. But not settling. What's the balance between that? You know what I'm saying? Like settling and not settling. Like actually like having high expectations for a partner and having too high of expectations that are unrealistic?
Mm.
Like, what's that balance? Because I think some people really struggle with that.
Yeah.
And they're looking for Hollywood. And I think I had to lower the Hollywood expectation. What the fast food, microwave relationships that you see on the screen, and expecting that that's what my relationship is going to be like. Now, we have a lot of fire, we have a lot of chemistry, but it wasn't until I relaxed that expectation that I was able to settle into a relationship and feel like it was enough. And feel like what we were doing was, what we were experiencing was like, oh, this is how it's supposed to be. This is love. Because love is portrayed a certain way that creates these unrealistic expectations in Hollywood. So yeah, what do you say to that?
First, I would say settling is not bad. I think when we say settling, we mean settling for less
Okay.
than we deserve or than is conducive to our lives and to our purpose and to our mission on this earth. I think that's what we mean when we say don't settle.
Don't settle for less.
Don't settle for less.
Don't settle for less than what you deserve, but settle for what you deserve.
Settling is not bad.
Settle.
Settling,
What you
settle down.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay.
Even that has kind of a negative connotation, settle down.
Settle up.
Yeah, settle up. So I think that's what we mean when we say don't settle. It's just like, don't settle for less than what God has ordained for you. We've talked about the good, acceptable, and perfect will of God, how there can be levels to the will of God, and the way that the Lord explained it to me as a bullseye, as a target, and how the good and the acceptable are the outer rings, and how the perfect is the bullseye.
Yeah.
And hitting that mark. I think the Lord can do a lot with a little, but he can do more with more. As is very evident in the parable of the talents. The more that someone had and the more they did with it, the more God multiplied it, right? I think because we don't have a good understanding or at least a foundational understanding of what good means to God, we think good is enough because he can work all things together for our good. That's what we're shooting for.
Yeah.
He can work all things together for the good of them that love him, that are called according to his purpose, right? All things, no matter what they are, the bad, the ugly, the indifferent, all those things can get worked in together and they can become good. But good, right, we've talked about, kind of means that which makes mankind flourish. And he can use sugar honey iced tea to make you flourish. That does not mean that it is necessarily the best thing, but it is helpful for your flourishing, right? And so sometimes we settle for good because it's within the target, because it's within the realm of possibility, because God can, I think good, and I could be wrong about this, but this is where I am right now. I think good, based on my understanding of it, is the baseline.
Okay.
I think it's the bare minimum for what God can do. I don't think that it's obviously perfect. Wholeness, like completeness, fulfillment of prophecy and promise. That's the bullseye. That's what we should be shooting for.
Okay.
So we shouldn't even settle for good.
Or acceptable. You're shooting for perfect.
We're shooting for perfect. Now we might land an acceptable.
Yeah.
And acceptable, I think, is probably better than good. But I think a lot of times what ends up happening, especially when it comes to our unmet expectations, those high expectations are born out of our own minds, our own desires, our own thoughts about what we think we know about ourselves or what we think we want. I think what we really need to do when it comes to expectations is we need to expect God. We were talking about this earlier. I have been just struggling with my restructure of what it means to expect from God. I think when I expect from God, I script it. I take what I think he should do, and I have an entire plethora of scenarios built out in my mind because I'm trying to predict how he's going to show up. And while I am trying to predict what he's going to do and how he's going to show up, I miss him because the costume that he stepped into the scene with doesn't fit what I was expecting. I thought I needed this aspect of his character when really I needed this aspect of his character. I thought I needed Yahweh Yireh or Jehovah Jireh. And he's like, no, you really need Rapha. You need healing before I can provide anything else.
Wow.
You know what I mean? And so there's a scripture that says that he watches over his word to perform it. If he gave you that word, he's standing in the wings watching the script happen. He's the author and the finisher of our faith. He's already written it all out. He's standing there in the wings watching for his exact time when he's going to enter. He has his costume prepared. He's going to step on the scene. He's going to perform in your life. He's going to do what he said he was going to do. But what you have to do is, first of all, you got to know the script too. Otherwise, you're going to be looking for his entrance when it's not time for him to come in. That's those expectations. We expect him to do certain things that aren't aligned with his will, that aren't aligned with his script. We got our own script going on, and we have to trust the author. We over here writing our own script. We over here writing our own play, over here writing our own book, and he already has it scripted. But we are not familiar with that script. That's the blueprint that the Lord has for our life. He's already written it. What we need to do is to gain the wisdom that comes from being connected with him. The wisdom is the blueprint. It's the download. It's the thing that gives us the vision for where we're supposed to be headed. We are the builders. We're supposed to take the blueprint that he gives us and build it out. Build out the scene, build out the stage, build out the scenery so that when he does show up, his costume and everything, all the scenery, all the set pieces, everything coincides with his will. But what we do with our expectations is we just be like, painting stuff green that's supposed to be red. We just have our own ideas for the way things are supposed to go. And I think that that's why we end up with these unmet expectations and these disappointments, because they are not aligned with God's script for our lives. They are not aligned with his desires for our lives. We think that if we get what we want, it will make us happy. And then we get what we want and we're not. And so I think that has a lot to do with the question and the idea and the conversation of settling. If you aren't aware of your own blueprint, you will always settle for something that does not align at all. Because you don't know who you are. That's one of the benefits of getting married later in life or coming into relationship when you're in your 30s and in your 40s, because by then you should have a pretty good grasp on who you are. Especially if you're following the Lord. You should have some idea. You should have some wisdom. You should have blueprint. And when you have that, you're a lot less likely to fall for a counterfeit or a decoy, because you know who you are and you know who the person you end up with has to be in order to be with you.
Right. You understand your piece, so you can understand how another piece would fit with your piece.
Yes.
Now, I agree with you. I mean, I'm the blueprint. I'm the blueprint guy.
You're the blueprint guy.
But no, I'm not going to challenge you, but I am going to say that my experience with understanding your blueprint is, like my brother Garen says, sometimes when you're putting a puzzle together, you want to put the border together first, and sometimes the Lord does not give you the border. He gives you a jumble of pieces, or he just gives you one piece, and then you get another piece, and you have to figure. You know what I'm saying? Like, and so I just want to make sure that people understand, like, you will not know the whole script.
Oh, absolutely.
You will not know God's whole script. So leave room for wonder, leave room for him to surprise you, surrender the when and the how, and just make your expectation him.
Yes.
And he will show up, and he will. But having said that, he does give you the wealth of revelation if you seek it.
Yes.
And that's what I would say. That's one of my biggest tips. Like, probably the biggest thing you can do if you're single And at any time in life, the most core skill first is to love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. That's number one. But right behind it is learn his voice. Learn his voice.
Learn his character.
Learn his character. Learn how to be intimate with him and understand how to hear and follow his voice. And as you do that, you will get the wisdom, you'll get the downloads, you'll get the wealth of revelation first. And that will start to unfold your blueprint. And so it's one revelation here, a revelation here, an insight here, and that all starts to come together to form your blueprint. And so you do start to get to know the script. And that clarity then helps you start to see counterfeits and the real thing when they come along. Like if I had not had all the revelations, if I had not recorded them and diligently studied them and diligently looked for them and trusted in his promises, then I would not have been able to recognize you for who you were and see, she fits the blueprint and I fit her blueprint and we have a unique blueprint together. Right. But I just want to back down the expectation of knowing the whole script. That's the only thing.
Yeah.
You know, you have to
I'm
know
sorry
enough.
if that was what I was communicating. You definitely won't know the scripts fully, right? Because he's the author and finisher, and he's the one who has, the beginning and the end and the middle all figured out and worked out. And I think it behooves us to focus on the scene we're in.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
And trust the whole plan. Trust the whole, and again, like we said, just enjoy this, focus on the scene you're in, enjoy the scene you're in.
Yeah. And if you don't know your lines or you don't know them as well as you should, practice, rehearse. You got to know what the word says about you, about what you want, about where you're headed. You need to, what do you call the revelations that we receive from God, personal scriptures.
Yeah.
Like, it's not enough to just know what scripture says. You got to know what the Lord has been saying to you personally.
Yeah.
And you have to rehearse that stuff. You got to have it in your mind. You have to have it in your heart. The scripture says that we're supposed to meditate. When you meditate, you're supposed to like chew on it and rehearse it and recite it and build it in your very imagination. You have to construct it in such a way that it is real to you in here before it ever manifests into the earth realm.
Yeah.
And so it's just like even when you're in performance and you're working on a script, right? Like when you're working on learning something, it is like sometimes I will take a script and just walk back and forth, just saying the words, putting it in different scenarios and being like, okay, if I was in this scenario, how would I say this? What was the emotion that's behind it? What's the scenery? What am I smelling? What am I feeling? What am I tasting? What am I touching? Like all of these things, and just building it into like to understanding what the Lord is trying to say about your life. Like, if I am fearfully and wonderfully made, what does that mean about me? Let's go down that rabbit hole. Let's discover that. If the Lord says I'm fearfully and wonderfully made, what does that mean to him? And then what does that mean to me? How do those things overlap and coincide? How am I going to aid him in building the best me that I can be? Because we have to participate.
Yeah.
He's a gentleman. He's never going to trespass on your boundaries. So if you have boundaries that prevent him from doing the work in you that will make you a better version of yourself, guess what's not going to happen? You're not going to develop. So it's just like all of this is it's just foundational. These are just things that, like, if you know them, you can build on them.
Yeah.
And they will bring about dividends. There will be fruit from these things. And like, so that's the thing about expectations though, because it's just like, how much of my imagination is my imagination and how much of it is the Lord? And you know what I mean? Like, there can be so much uncertainty in that. And it just requires constant collaboration with the Lord.
Yeah.
Like, just constant. That's why we're supposed to be praying without ceasing, because yes, your imagination can run away with you, as the song says.
Yes.
You know? And so it's just like constant collaboration with the Lord will help you have the right expectations. And I think ultimately the right expectation is to expect him.
Yeah. I think that's become a theme. We've been expectations. We've been on that like
Yeah.
since the beginning. So kind of circling back, there's so much more. I didn't anticipate we could do a part 2-ish thing on this, but like I would love at some point to discuss with you, like, how did you deal with people who are trying to match make? You know what I'm saying? Not today. We'll do that later. How did you deal with people who said stupid or insensitive things to you about being single? Because that happened to me all the time, and that happens to people.
It happens to a lot of people.
You know, and that's really, really difficult to deal with, right? And like loneliness. How do you deal with the loneliness, right? And
That's a rough one.
and you know,
Especially if you're like the type of person who is like touchy, like that's your love language.
Yeah.
If your love language is physical touch, that is rough.
Yep.
That's rough.
No, it totally is.
Because a lot of men, that is part of their love language profile, is usually physical touch is in there somewhere.
Yeah, right. So I think we're in a good place to kind of start wrapping up here, because I feel like what this has developed into theme wise is not settling. It's okay to get married later in life, and just waiting on God, but also adjusting your expectations, recalibrating your expectations along with His kind of timeline.
And what does it even mean to wait on God?
Right. That's waiting on God. That's a whole other episode. So I think I just have a couple things maybe as far as wrap up, like key takeaways and key additional things to add into this part of the conversation. I would like to say, I think just a few adjacent things that I think apply. Don't live with regret. I don't regret anything. I really don't. I don't have anything in my past that I look back and say, oh man, I think I always did the best I could with what I knew at the time. And I know more now, and I would do things differently, but I don't regret how I did it because I was doing the best I could at the time. And with our relationships, you might have regrets, but don't live in the past, and get forgiveness if you need it, forgive if you need to, and move on and just learn the lesson and recategorize it as a gain. And I just look at everything that led me in my life that could have been a loss, I could have blamed, could have been a painful experience that I lived in my trauma. For some reason, the Lord blessed me to be able to turn it into a gain, into a lesson that led me to you. And I believe that that's really an important principle, that I don't think we advance the timeline necessarily, although I think we can, but learn the lesson that you're supposed to learn now. Play the part you're supposed to play right now. Say the lines, rehearse them, like you're talking about practicing. Because life is less about time and more about lessons. Life is more about modules that you get to pass, and it's kind of self-paced, influenced by others' pace and by God's pace for sure. But in a lot of ways, you get to choose the pace that you learn at. And you can pass a module sooner and move on to the next one and grow and develop. And there's so much you can do without a partner to develop in your relationship with God and yourself and with your neighbor. And there's so much good you can do, and so much that you are not less than or inferior because you're not married. And so I think that all those things matter. And don't be so quick don't be so eager to get married that you settle for something less than the Lord's blueprint for your life. Don't be so eager to get married because you think it's going to solve your problems, because in reality it's not. Don't be so eager to get married that you marry the wrong one, because being married and miserable is worse than being single and happy. So, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
There's
a quote I found. I don't even know who said it, but it says that the pain of marrying the wrong person is worse than your fear of not getting married. Marriage is not a competition. Take your time, fall in love, nurse your ambitions, groom your relationship, because forever is too long to be unhappy. And always, always remember that it's better to wait long than to marry wrong.
Better to wait long than to marry wrong.
The pain of marrying the wrong person is worse than your fear of not being married.
Wow. Wow. That's good.
That is good.
That is really good. Wow. Okay. Do you have any other takeaways today? I just know that we could go on for hours.
Yeah. There's this, I'm full of quotes today, but there's this quote by Barbra Streisand that, I love Barbra Streisand. My sister and I are kind of obsessed. She's a little bit more obsessed than I am, but I love me some Barbie. And she said, the best part of getting married later in life is you get great wisdom. You don't have your learner's permit anymore. And I think that is so appropriate for this topic, because just if you think about how many people are out on the road operating heavy machinery in relationship land, with their learner's permit,
Wow.
it's actually a little scary.
Yeah.
There are some pretty significant crashes that happen because there are so many people in the relationship space that are operating with a learner's permit. And a lot of them done stole the car, and they're supposed to have, a licensed driver in the passenger seat, and nobody's licensed.
Right.
And all of y'all just in the car with your permits, and several permits together do not equal a license. You know what I mean? You can't combine them. These are not, like coupons. Right. And so it's just like, it's really interesting to be like, wisdom gives you a license. The more wisdom you have, the better driver you'll be when it comes to relationships. And so I know it took me a long time to get my driver's license in the natural, and I think I felt inferior for a long time because I didn't have my license. And I think just thinking about that from the standpoint of relationships is kind of helpful for me, because it's like just because you can drive doesn't mean you should be driving. Everybody can drive, but not everybody's a good driver. That's something I learned living in Utah. Lord have mercy, the way these folks drive is crazy. I love y'all, but man, they make some crazy decisions on the road. It was like that.
Why you got to do this?
I'm sorry. When you're from New York, you just automatically everybody from Jersey can't drive, right?
Right.
That's the stereotype. And then when we were living in Missouri, we was just like, the people from Arkansas love y'all, but good Lord, the way that they would just be making these impulsive decisions and just not thinking about anybody else on the road and just doing truly dangerous things.
Okay. Yes.
Just scary. And so it feels very similar out here. There's a lot of people who are on the road with their learner permit.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just just because you can drive, just because you are old enough, to have sexual urges or whatever, doesn't mean you should be getting married.
Right.
And
Dang.
When I think of the self I was when I thought I would be married, when I was 25, I was not mentally prepared to be nobody's wife. And I think you can get mentally prepared younger.
Yeah, for sure.
If you are trained correctly, if you have the right training, if you have the right emotional and intelligence and awareness, you absolutely can be. I'm not saying that it's just age, but a lot of times the longer you are on the earth, the more wisdom you have.
Yeah.
And so I'm just...
You would hope.
You would hope. That's true, because there's still some
age does not necessarily mean wisdom,
and doesn't necessarily mean maturity either. That's true.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just one of the benefits of getting married later in our 30s versus in our 20s. It meant that, I don't know. It just feels like it's been a lot easier to be with you,
yeah,
and not I had some stupid biases and like mindsets and perspectives that like sometimes I will be in the middle of a conversation, or I'll be doing something in our house and just something will trigger like me remembering like what I would have thought or how I would have reacted to something in the past.
For sure.
And I'm just so grateful that I have the wisdom. Like, one of the things that I've learned is to shut up and not say what's on my mind just because it's on my mind.
Yeah.
Just because I'm thinking it doesn't mean that it has to come out of my mouth. That is something that I learned from just experience and time. I could have really done some damage to just your self-esteem, to your mind,
for sure.
to the way that, to our relationship, to the way we interact, if I was the same way that I was when I was younger.
Yeah.
So I am grateful, for our particular timeline. I love what you said about how things with God is not so much about time. I would say that it's not as much about time as it is about timing.
Yeah.
And how they're probably not the same thing.
Yeah.
People always say his timing is perfect.
Yeah.
Probably because he's not really concerned with our timelines.
Right.
I remember when we were courting, dating, whatever, and I still had timelines in my head. The biological clock ticking and all the things that, society it's kind of baked into all of us, and I hadn't said anything about the timeline, but it was still ticking away in the back of my mind. And the Lord told me, that timeline you got, crush it. I can do more in 3 months than I've done in 3 years. But you need to crush your timeline. And I was like, cool. And from there I learned that his timing is perfect and it has very little to do with my timeline. So.
Yes. Way to bring it all back, babe. Because I think that's what we're going to title this one, is part of it's going to be waiting on God, which again is another episode, but waiting on God is worth it. Waiting on his timing is worth it. Waiting on his will is worth it. I could have been happy with a lot of different women that I dated. I had opportunities, but every day I look at you, I'm like, I'm so grateful I did not settle for less than what the Lord's perfect will for me was. And I'm grateful that I was willing to go through the hell that I had to go through to get to the heaven that's you. And our relationship isn't perfect. And in Latter-day Saint theology, we have the theology of eternal marriage, heavenly, or getting married in the temple. That's the pinnacle. And you and I didn't get married in the temple, but there's a big difference between getting married in the temple and having a heavenly marriage, the kind of marriage that brings heaven to earth right now. And I'm grateful for the Lord's promises on my life that help me to understand the eternity's in his hands, and he will work out every eternal detail for us. But more importantly, that you and I have the kind of marriage that we would want to last forever. And that's worth waiting for. That's worth not settling. That's worth developing yourself right now. Because you don't get it if you don't use the time you have right now and learn the lessons you have right now and grow close to the Lord. Love him. Learn his voice. Be obedient to his voice. Follow every step he gives you, and he will lead you into his perfect will. Waiting on him does not mean waiting around, sitting down. Sometimes it does. Waiting on him means that you are sitting in his lap, resting in him, and he's driving. And you could be going 1,000 miles an hour or be parked, and you're still resting in him. It's not about the pace as much as it is about being in his will and having an active participation in serving, just like a waiter or waitress would. coming back to him and say, Lord, what do you want me to do next? What do you want me to do next? And then he will give you what to do next. As you follow those steps, he's going to lead you where he wants you to be. And for us, it was Germany. For you, it might be something different. It's going to be something different. Your story is not our story. Our story is not your story. But we just hope that today we're able to just give you a little encouragement, a little advice, a little hope that the Lord is weaving a master story for you. Trust him. Trust that he is the author and the finisher. Know your part, know his part, and play it well. Not his part, your part. So, anyway, we love you. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening to today's episode. Did I make you cry, babe?
Yes, you made me cry.
So sorry.
Ours is the kind of marriage we would want to last forever.
Yeah.
That's why I wanted to get married outside. Because the first temple was Eden. And I thought, well, if I can't give you that temple, I better give you the first one.
Whoa. Dang. Okay. All right. Well, we better not go in, y'all.
Okay. He done made me cry. I'm over here sniffling. So we got to leave me with a smile on my face. We got to leave you with a smile on your face, as we always do. What you got for the people, baby?
I struggle. I mean, I feel like there's like this pressure to perform, you know.
Oh boy.
So it's nothing really big today. We were doing statistics earlier, like different studies, and talked about like older people, right? And so I'm not trying to stereotype anybody, because you can be bald and not be old, right?
That's true.
However, there's a study that says 90% of bald people own a comb. They just can't part with it. We love y'all. Y'all are the best.
We love y'all. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking with us. If you've gotten this far, you really love us and you really want to see us succeed. And you like this for some reason. Thank you. We love you. Y'all go build a bridge. Talk to you later.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Bye.